Rusame reader, Croat Song, and today I will be reading to you from Sticky Notes and Trinkets by RainbowStar_772. That's me! Now, on to Chapter 12, Lies and Little Gifts. America watched. It looked like Russia was definitely talking with Damon. His heart sank. Damon was one of the biggest assholes to him. But he could still hope that he may be able to eventually get Russia to like him. But Damon wanted to just ruin his ability to attempt to befriend yet another person. He sighed and looked away, deciding it'd be better to just head off to his first class instead of finding out what sort of lies Damon felt like spewing to Russia. It wouldn't do any good for his mental health, nor would it be good to dwell on it. He took out the bracelet and held it in his hand, turning it over and feeling the slightly warm beads. It was an amateur job, but he hoped they didn't look too bad. Honestly, he should probably stick to the other sorts of gifts when it came to things to give to Russia. Stuff he knew he was more skilled at. Resin, stickers, wind chimes, blankets, knitting. Hell, he wasn't sure, just probably not the glass beads. At least not glass beads until he took a class on how to make them better. He shook his head to clear his thoughts, walking into the class. He sat down as comfortably as he really could there. Eventually, class started, and it went as it normally did. Mr. Weatherly, with his song and dance while pretending to not be able to hear him during roll call. It was discomforting, but he went through as he usually did, just hoping it would be over soon. About halfway through the class, he felt the need to use the bathroom and raised his hand. Once he was called on, he said, "May I please use the restroom?" hoping his teacher wouldn't find some way to be antagonistic about it. "No, you should have gone before class. You can wait." "I didn't need to go before class." He tried to politely interject, just wanting to use the restroom. "Well, you can wait," Mr. Weatherly said with an eye roll. "You let Kimberly go a few minutes ago, and she's back. Just let him go, you dumb bastard." Russia growled, surprising America. Maybe, just maybe, Russia hadn't believed Damon, and maybe Russia didn't hate him. He smiled a little at the thought. Soon, though, Mr. Weatherly agreed and let him go to the restroom. So he left the room and headed to the restroom, using it before on his way back to the classroom. He paused in the hallway, realizing Russia's locker was on the way back to the classroom, and he still had the bracelet in his pocket. It was a small gift, and since no one was out in the halls, it was a guarantee that no one would know he was the person who put it there. He smiled to himself as he walked over the locker, carefully opening it and placing the bracelet inside. He put it on top of the book in the middle of the locker, hoping that would put enough attention on it when Russia opened the locker later. He was grateful that their lockers didn't have locks, and that they weren't allowed to get locks for them either. That was because of some crazy stuff that had happened a couple years back. Several kids had put drugs in their lockers. Some had decided to literally flush their keys down the toilet on the last day of senior year as a prank of sorts, or straight up refused to remove the locks. And a really creative and innovative kid had decided to attach a miniature lock to his that literally exploded if the code was gotten wrong 3 times in a row, and then refused to tell it even after being pried for it. That one had made the news, and the kid even pretended that he forgot the combination at some point. America shook his head and closed the locker carefully, then bolted back to class. He was in front of the door, he opened it and walked in normally. The rest of class went normally. Luckily, Mr. Weatherly left him alone for the most part for the rest of the class. As he left the class, he let out a little relieved sigh, waiting for Russia to leave and following the other to stay a few paces behind him. He hid himself in the crowd so he could see Russia's reaction to the gift. He saw Russia smile softly as the other put the bracelet on. He also watched as Russia grabbed his books and then walked off. He then started towards his own locker, finding another sticky note. It said, "You're beautiful," which flustered him a little bit, but he couldn't bring himself to mind. It felt nice to receive a compliment, and it to read as earnest as well. He took it and gently stuck it to the inside of his binder. He was going to keep those. He could look back at them when things were getting bad and remind himself that at least one person outside of his family liked him. It was a nice reminder he realized he needed. It was a little sad how quickly the next class flew by after roll call, as he really liked his teacher. Soon enough, it was lunch, and he did what he usually did, heading out to eat his lunch under the tree, as he usually would. Once he was done, he headed back inside to see if he'd be lucky enough to head to the library. It was times like now where he could feel eyes on him and occasionally hear insults that didn't help. He smiled to himself. He was lucky enough to be able to sneak by and head to the library. Once he was out, he shook off the insults. They weren't creative, to say the least, but that didn't make them hurt any less. Eventually, lunch was nearing its end, and he put away the book he'd been reading, making his way to the locker rooms so that he wouldn't be late for PE. He quickly changed once he was in the locker room, doing so in the bathroom stall, which seemed to be the right idea, since he heard someone else coming into the locker room. Once he got changed, he left the stall, spotting Russia with his shirt off. His face flushed red as he saw Russia half-clothed. The other was well-built, and was quite attractive. He only looked for a second or so, following the common courtesy of not staring. He kept his eyes off of Russia and got himself out of the locker room as quickly as he could, not wanting to make himself rude by looking again. And that is the end of this chapter. I hope you enjoyed. Anyway, I'd like to invite you to join the Discord, which is linked down in the description below. That being said, I hope you have a nice rest of your day, night, or whatever it is for you. Just enjoy your time. And I will see you tomorrow.